Tonight on Pet Talk, we're answering your most embarrassing pet questions.
Lily has been eating her own poop.
I've been noticing that he has really bad gas.
Always blame it on the dog. Never take responsibility.
Is there any suggestions on how to get my pug to stop humping me?
A lot of people think that humping behavior is totally a sexual behavior, but
Plus, can your pet's lick make you sick?
Are you ready to see what the lab sent us?
Yes, I'm ready.
This is mine?
This is yours. This is
From my
your
room.
house. That's right.
And the surprising people food you should stop feeding your pet.
there has been a new line of peanut butters coming out that could be deadly.
It all starts right now on Pet Talk.
Give it up for your announcer there, Ricky. He's not too bad, right? Kids going places. Guys, David Mizejewski's here, everybody. Come on, round of applause.
Hey guys.
How fantastic. David, thank you so much for being here. Congratulations on the show.
Thank you.
Super excited to talk about it. I'm generally just pumped that you're here. I consider myself a big late night guy. One of my favorite late night mainstays has always been the exotic animals segment. You know, growing up, you had your Jack Hannas, your Steve Irwins, and
right.
you are kind of like this that's you're living the dream, right?
I really am. For a lifelong animal lover, nature geek, like getting to do this and getting to, go in front of the cameras and talk about how cool animals are and get other people excited about it, it literally is a dream come true.
I got to imagine, right? Because when you were, of course you were watching those things when you were a kid as well.
Oh, totally.
Did you ever look at your mom and you're like, one day I'm going to bring a giant turtle on television and it's going to poop on a desk? Did you ever...
Absolutely. I didn't have to say that to my family.
Well, that's awfully specific. That's
they
a
were all
clear
telling
vision,
me
but-
that. They're like, one day that's going to be you, and here I am. So
That's so cool. And you are no stranger to television. You're on Conan all the time, Wendy Williams, the Today Show, and now you've got this show as well. What is that like? Is there a different vibe from show to show? They're all very, very entertaining.
absolutely, yeah. No, there's every show is a little bit different, and it's different crew. Every host is different. So, when I used to do the Martha Stewart show all the time, that had a vibe. You go over to the Today Show, and, I do mostly my appearances with Kathy Lee and Hoda. And yes, they do actually drink wine.
Yeah.
But when I do earlier segments with Matt and some of the earlier morning crew, totally different vibes.
Right.
I just came from doing an appearance on Wendy Williams, and she is one of my favorites because she's just so real and genuine and fun and funny and respectful of the animals. So yeah, all the shows have a little bit of a different feel.
What was the Martha Stewart vibe? Let's go back to that. You're burying the lead here.
Hey, listen, I'll tell you, I love Martha Stewart. She's very demanding, and like she says, perfection is very demanding. And when you're on a show with her, all your I's have to be dotted, all your T's have to be crossed, and she's hard on her staff. She makes sure that everything is good. As a guest on her show, I actually loved doing the show because I knew that I didn't have to worry about sloppiness or stuff not being presented properly. If I said, we're going to bring on X animal and we need it to be in this space and we need to have rubber matting on the floor so that it doesn't slip, I knew that it was going to get done.
That was cool. And she was never like, did she have animal requirements, or she deferred to your expertise? She knew you're the guy. I'm gonna whatever you think is best, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I mean, of course, they have requests. One of the last segments that I did on Martha's show before they went off the air was, and this would only happen on Martha Stewart's show, they decided to do a black and white themed episode. So everything in the episode had to be black and white. So I had to bring a bunch of
What do we got?
black
Skunks?
and white animals. We had a black and white rough lemur. We had, I can't even remember. We had a penguin.
Naturally.
We had a black potbelly pig. So, in fact, you might still be able to find that clip if you do a little bit of Googling.
I'm sure it's on the internet. Yeah, everything.
It was actually pretty funny, mostly because I had the pig on a big table, and I was feeding it, and we were talking about Vietnamese potbelly pigs, and as the pig is... As the pig is gobbling the food on the one end, it starts pooping on the other end. And Martha is there, aghast that there's, feces all over her table, and she's trying to clean it up. It's pretty funny.
You look at her and she just goes, not the first time on the show. This is a crazy show. It's a wild show. Well, that's so cool. So all these different animals. Now, this new show, Nat Geo, this is the first of its kind that I know of, right, where it's a late night style talk show about pets, about wildlife, about
Exactly,
animals. It's really cool. Where did the idea kind of come from? Where did you guys?
Well, so it's Nat Geo Wild, which is the sort of the animal sister network to regular old Nat Geo. So all the programming is really animal focused on Nat Geo Wild, and the show is called Pet Talk. And as you said, the idea was that so many people out there have pets. They love their pets. pets are a huge part of their lives. And there's never really been a talk show format all about pets. And so the good folks at Nat Geo Wild said, hey, let's try this. Let's get together some animal experts. And so I am representing kind of the wild animal connection, and my two co-hosts, Dr. Tina Oliveri and Dr. Courtney Campbell, are veterinarians. So they're a little bit more on, kind of the domesticated pet, medical side. But so it's really fun because we get to come together. We all have very different backgrounds, different perspectives. So we kind of sit down and we get to talk about mostly, again, pet-oriented issues. But the surprising thing is that there's a lot of connections between pets and wildlife that most people don't realize. And that's, of course, the role that I play on the show. My day job is as a naturalist and wildlife expert with the National Wildlife Federation. Been there for about 16 years.
16 years, yeah.
And what I do is I get to be a naturalist and teach people about nature and wildlife in the media, on TV and radio and blogging and all that good stuff. And so, getting cast on this show for Nat Geo Wild, again, is a dream come true. And I get to help people, for example, understand, well, why is my dog trying to bury a bone? Why does my dog like to lick my face? And a lot of these behaviors are connected to the fact that dogs and wolves are actually the same species. Most people don't know that. And they share a lot of the same behaviors, even though dogs have been domesticated for hundreds of thousands of years. And so, helping people to understand their pets through their ancestry, and then at the same time, helping people get an appreciation for wildlife via their dumb dog that they love to death. It's a real win-win.
No, for sure. So it's airing, was it Friday, I think, at Tennessee?
Yeah, we premiere this Friday, February 19th at 10 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Central. It's going to be an hour-long show, and we'll be on.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, we'll be on each Friday.
So I was wondering, what do you guys, obviously an hour is a lot of time to fill, a lot longer than your standard daytime or nighttime show segment. What were some of the things that you looked at, like a checklist, if you will, as you were coming up with the show of like, all right, we've done this here, we want to hit all these different things we haven't had a chance to before? Because one of the really cool things is, yes, those segments are fun and they're super entertaining, but they're also really educational, and you're always teaching something. That's kind of the fun part.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering what you were looking at going into the show. What more could you do? Like, what are some of the great things we could look forward to that are unique about this program here?
So, Dr. Tina and Dr. Courtney do a lot of sort of medical-oriented things that are really helpful and practical for people to know. So we did a really fun, almost like game show type segment on what kinds of treats can you give your pet's dog, like what's good to and what's not. And some of them you'd be really surprised at. Even for me, some of them I was like, I think I feed that to my dog. I hope it's not the wrong thing. And
I found out recently grapes are like ridiculously poisonous.
Grapes
for dogs.
are toxic to dogs.
Oh my God, guys! Seriously, hide the grapes. Like it is no joke.
That's right. Yeah. They can die from it.
Yeah, exactly. Literally, no joke. We, my fiance's dog, we came home one day and her sister was watching it. And he was like, "Oh my God, it was so funny. He had a grape and he was moving it around with his nose. It was one grape, and he's like a 75-pound dog. So I immediately went to Google. And I was like, all right, he's going to be fine.
Right.
But no more grapes. And like, I had no idea.
Yeah,
right?
If that was, a pug that ate one grape, because body size and, they, they're made differently than we are. And so there are foods that we can eat that they can't. Same thing with birds. A lot of people have pet parrots. And diet-wise for those guys, it's interesting because a lot of people think, well, I can just go buy some bird seed at the store. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, that is going to kill your bird eventually. It will shorten its lifespan because these birds have
its name is in the title. It's bird seed.
You'd think. Right?
Somebody get on the phone. Tell them immediately.
This is why I have a job, right? To help people understand this
stuff. We need you, clearly.
But yeah, and so if you just feed your pet parrot a diet of nothing but seeds, it's going to eventually get food deficiencies. These birds in the wild eat all sorts of foods. However, they can pretty much eat anything we can with a few exceptions, like avocado. You don't want to feed it an avocado because it will kill it. So do your research, and that's something that we do a lot of on Pet Talk.
It's crazy. Well, it's good that you do because it's funny. It's like it's not funny at all because like you don't ever want to do that to your pet. But there's really rarely any middle ground. It's like, well, they could either eat anything that we eat or this thing's going to kill them immediately. So don't give them this thing.
Yeah.
So like it's super important that there's a platform for this where we can get this information.
And that's exactly it. We want to be fun. We want to be entertaining. But at the end of the day, we want to give good quality info and help people, have healthy lives for their pets. And that's what, again, Nat Geo Wild being associated with them and the teaming up of the National Wildlife Federation and Nat Geo Wild, it's again like a dream come true, and I'm very, very proud to be representing both of them here today and on the show.
For sure. Well, it's a perfect match. It makes a lot of sense, and I'm really excited about the show. We're going to talk about these things in a second, but I also want to get into a couple other things. This is almost a little selfish in a way, but I know you guys touched on this, and I'd love to get, as you're the wildlife expert here, my fiance, who presumably has stopped working and is watching right now, and will attest to this, for easily a year and a half, has insisted we get a pocket pig. And I have been firm of the belief that that is probably not the best idea for us in a small apartment with a boxer. Could you please tell my fiance I don't need a pocket pig?
A potbelly pig.
A pocket pig.
Oh, a pocket pig.
Like
okay.
a mini pig. Like,
Okay, right.
This is a big thing right
Yeah.
now. People are getting tiny versions of animals
Yes.
that we wouldn't normally. It's like
That's exactly
No,
it.
it's true though, right? There's like little giraffes and like there's
You're
all
absolutely
kinds.
right. Actually, a mini giraffe would be kind of cool.
That would be amazing, actually. You know what? Sign me up for the mini giraffe. As soon as we get that, I'll take 2.
Yeah.
But for real though, if you could
Yeah.
talk a little bit about this kind of like this pet trend, this fad thing that's going on.
Yeah, well, the first thing I'm going to say is watch the premiere of Pet Talk on Friday because we have an entire segment on the mini pet trend. But what I will say is my general advice, really for any pet, but in particular for getting these, mini pigs, mini goats, whatever, is that it's totally fine to have these animals as pets, but you have to do your due diligence. You need to read up on it. You need to understand the needs of that animal before you make the commitment to take it on. These are animals that can live a long time. They can live as long as dogs, right? Yeah. Animals are not gifts. They're not throwaway. If you make that commitment, you really have a responsibility to make sure you take care of it. You got to look at diet. You got to look at veterinary care. You got to look at exercise. If you can't give that animal what it needs, then you have no business getting it.
And that's all totally valid and legitimate advice. I'm only over here laughing because I know she's done all those things, and I think you just did it. I think I have to get a pocket pick now.
Right. Well, there you go.
I think when I get off of here, so I'm
I
gonna get a phone
tried.
call. He said I could do it. I did. I read. So okay, cool. Let's talk a little bit about. I saw a cool stat before. Something like 9 million Americans that have like pets in their house also are attracting wildlife to their backyards and stuff, which kind of brings us to some of these items that we have here. If you could talk a little bit about wildlife in your backyard and sort of like creating that friendly environment and ecosystem for like you, your pets, your family, and this wildlife.
That's right. Yeah. So, there's millions of Americans that have pets, and they understand kind of the needs of their pets. They know they need food, they need clean water, they need a place of shelter. And at the same time, there's like over 9 million Americans that are also really interested in attracting what we call backyard wildlife, birds and butterflies and toads and things like that. And so this is another thing that I talk a lot about on Pet Talk is not just our domesticated pets that live inside the house with us, but also some of these animals that we can take care of by providing habitat for them. And of course, that ties right into some of the work that I do at the National Wildlife Federation. So what we have here today are some of the things that pretty much anybody, anywhere, can put out in their yard. You don't even have to have a big yard. Sometimes, if you live here in the city, sometimes you have a rooftop. Sometimes you just have a little balcony. Sometimes you have the community garden. The things that I'm going to tell you about here, you can do these things in almost any space. And if you do, you'll help kind of restore habitat for wild animals. And again, we're not talking bears and mountain lions. We're talking birds and butterflies, but they still count. And you'll basically do the same thing that you do for your pet. You're going to nurture it. You're going to, give them their habitat that they need to survive. And you'll get to enjoy them because you'll get to see them. Right. And you get to know that you're doing something good for the bigger environment.
Is there, do you ever find that people sort of, because when we have like our domesticated pets and stuff, there's this bond, this emotional thing, and you want to pet them and all that sort of stuff. Do you find sometimes having to educate people to like, look, just because this bird is in your backyard all the time doesn't mean he's necessarily your best friend.
Right.
He's not going to come into the house. He's not going to say, you can't teach him to say things. These are all fantasies I've had about birds in my backyard, clearly. But
Yeah, you've been watching too many Disney movies, I think. But
Perhaps. That's entirely possible. But is that something you run into often, or am I being really weird right now?
No, absolutely. No, that's the number one thing. The number one message that I always have to say whenever I'm out speaking publicly, when I bring crazy exotic animals onto TV shows, the number one thing that I have to say is this animal is not a pet.
Yeah. It's
a wild animal. Now, again, there are certain groups of wild animals that you can take care of just like you take care of your pet, but just outside. You're going to provide it with the food and the water and the cover and places to raise young and things like that. So, yeah, absolutely. You don't ever want to try to touch, feed, like out of your hand, pet, bring into your house, any kind of wild animal. Because let me tell you, a squirrel can mess you up. If it's got a mouth, it can bite. Songbirds, I've done bird banding before, like a cardinal, beautiful cardinal. those little suckers will mess you up too.
No
they have
way.
really strong beaks that are designed to, crush seeds and shells of nuts and things like that. And if one of those gets your finger, forget about it. It hurts. They can actually draw blood. So,
No way.
yeah.
So why am I putting a little house out for it?
Well, because you don't want to go up and touch it, but
Yeah.
you can sit
No,
back
for
and watch it. So, do you want to dive into these?
Before we open up to Q&A, we've got a ton of fun stuff that I want to take a look at and kind of dive into, so we can go through some of these items here. The first one that I am most intrigued by is this guy right here. We can get up and kind of pick these up and talk
Okay,
about
cool,
what's
yeah.
going on here.
All right,
you want
so-
to hold the mic for you? So you
Yeah, if you can hold the mic. So this is one of my favorite things. This is a bee house. Okay, so most people think of honeybees and they think of beehives and getting stung by bees and things like that. Well, honeybees are great. They're actually really a domesticated species. They are from Europe. We brought them over here for agriculture. There's over 4,000 species of bees that are native to North America. And not all of them are black and yellow. Some of them are metallic green and blue. Some of them are this big. Some of them are these little itty-bitty, almost microscopic things. But they're all on the decline. And so one of the things that you can do if you're an animal lover and you want to sort of nurture the wildlife around you just like you would your pets, you can put out bee nesting boxes. And these little bees come in, and instead of forming a hive, let's see if I can pull this out here. Instead of forming a hive, they'll nest in close proximity to each other, but it's one individual female bee will go into one of these tunnels, and she'll go all the way down into the back, and she'll lay an egg, and she'll make something called a bee loaf, which is she collects nectar and pollen and rolls it together into like a little loaf of bread.
That's really gross, but a very adorable name. Keep going.
Right. And so she lays an egg on that bee loaf, and then she builds a little wall inside of this tunnel. And then she'll repeat that process until this entire tunnel is filled. And each female bee, it'll be one female bee per tunnel, and then what happens is those eggs hatch, the larvae eat the nectar and pollen, they pupate, and then eventually they chew themselves out, and then they start the process anew. These guys are critically important pollinators. That means that they go out from flower to flower, they move pollen from flower to flower and fertilize it. That's why we have fruit, that's why we have berries, why we have nuts. And so they're really important for agriculture and also obviously for just the functioning of the ecosystem. And these guys are declining because people are spraying pesticides and taking away native plants. And these are things that, again, you can do right in your yard that are going to help these wild animals and just, again, like you would take care of your pets and make a difference for the environment.
Well, that's a great point, that they're on the decline because people are killing them all. People are killing them because people are afraid of them or they think they have a bee problem. Couldn't, in theory, something like this help you control that bee problem in a safe way by giving them a place where, with like in your yard somewhere? Is that another way to sort of tackle that, like putting this someplace in your area to sort of give them a home?
Draw them into that one spot. Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. Only female bees can sting. And these native bees that are not hive formers they can sting the females, but I've never heard of anybody getting stung by one. Here's why. Bees that form colonies, hive-forming bees, like honeybees, they have all of their babies in one spot. They've got this huge, sort of honey resource right there. Of course they're going to sting you if you come near it. They've invested all this time and energy. These bees don't do that. They don't make honey. They lay their eggs, and the female bees go off and do their own thing. They're not sitting here protecting the hive or the nest hole, so you really don't have a problem so much with that. Now, carpenter bees, those really big guys that like to buzz around, and they scare people because they buzz right in your face. They will kind of tunnel into rotting wood, and sometimes people have problems with them like on their deck or whatever. So what I would say to that is, put fresh wood out on your deck, because if the wood is rotting already, that's what's going to attract carpenter bees. So take care of that, put a sealant on it, keep it from rotting, and then get a big old log and drill some holes in it and put that in the back part of your yard, and that'll start attracting them back in that way.
Perfectly cool and sound advice. All right, so that's the little bee hut we got there, the bee house. What's going on with this guy here? I'm going to come around the other side so I can hold the mic and you can...
There we go. All right, so this, you might think, is a birdhouse. But I did. In fact, I did. I thought it was a birdhouse. But you'd be wrong. This is actually... That's right. This is what we call a roosting box. So a birdhouse is really, the proper term is actually nesting box. And we have a couple of them here. We'll talk about that in a second. Birds use them as a place where they lay their eggs and raise their babies. They don't live in them year-round. So it's specifically just for raising their babies. A roosting box is a structure that provides birds with cover or shelter from the bad weather. And so, some differences. A nesting box is always going to have the hole up at the top. The roosting box has the hole down here at the bottom. The reason for that is that heat rises. And so having this hole at the bottom helps retain heat in here so that on a cold winter night, you can get 10 bluebirds cramming themselves in here. And it's not just birds that use these either. I've seen flying squirrels, which are, by the way, like the cutest animals ever. Like go Google flying squirrel and you'll be in love. So anyway, they'll crawl in here, they'll use their body heat to stay warm. And in a roosting box on the inside, you should have a ladder or perches that just sort of allows more animals to fit in there. In a nesting box, you want it to be totally empty. Otherwise, some important things. This one, has some drainage at the bottom. It's more important in a nesting box, and when we look at those, I'll point those things out to you. But yeah, a roosting box, you can put these out. Animals will use them year-round, but obviously in wintertime, they're really important.
Very, very cool. Okay, so if I want a flying squirrel, all I have to do is put one of these in my backyard, is what you're telling me?
You most likely will get one. So here's the deal with flying squirrels. They're pretty much just as common as gray squirrels. But the reason people don't see them and don't know that they're there is that they're nocturnal. And most of us are not hanging around in the treetops in the middle of the night. Most of us, some of us are. So they're just, their natural habits are opposite of ours, and so we never see them. But yeah, if you put out a roosting box, and on a winter's night, if you put out maybe some peanuts or peanut butter close to this, you might begin to lure them in. Interestingly, even though they're these little tiny cute things that almost look like a Japanese animation stuffed animal, I mean, they're that cute, they're really carnivorous for squirrels. So, gray squirrels, they like to eat acorns, they eat leaf buds. Occasionally, they might eat a bird egg. These little adorable flying squirrels are out there like ravenously consuming other rodents. They'll eat mice. They love to eat insects. So in the winter months, when they can't get some of those other foods, you can attract them in if you put out, again, some birdseed or peanuts or put some peanut butter on the bark of a tree. And the really neat thing that you can do is if you have like a spotlight on the back of your house, kind of train it on that spot. And then each night, starting, I would say, in the Northeast where we are, maybe around late November, and anywhere between then and mid-February, when they start their mating season, you can usually start to attract them, and you'll get them to come in, and you'll see them in the light, and they're really, really just awesome little animals.
So when the mating season hits, you switch it to like a red spotlight and set the mood for them because it's responsible to encourage.
But here's the funny thing, is that once the mating season starts, they absolutely lose interest in coming to a roosting box and eating. Yeah, they just get their little minds, their little squirrel brains just go. I get it. Yeah, so.
All right, so is that real quick before we move on, is that a real reality that if you're getting this for your family, you should prepare like the kids that, look, a bird may be nesting in here and then a squirrel could come along and kind of take over? Like, is that,
Yeah, I mean, the idea of attracting and nurturing wildlife in your yard is a really great way to introduce kids to all sorts of, sort of learning about life. It's literally the birds and the bees happening right outside your door. And I have a niece and a nephew, and I love taking them out and helping them discover this stuff. And you can watch it on TV, you can read it in a book, but if you actually do it yourself and experience it in real life, it's tremendously powerful. Yeah,
for sure. Cool. All right, what else we got? So that's the nesting, right? The roosting.
Let's see, what else do we have here? This thing down here is another kind of nesting structure, but it's obviously open. So we call this like a nesting shelf or a nesting platform. Some birds naturally build their nests inside holes in trees. We call those birds cavity nesters. So bluebirds, woodpeckers, chickadees, things like that do that. Other birds will just build their nests in the branches of trees. And this kind of nesting platform kind of mimics, or it provides an area for birds that like to sort of build in like a dense shrub. So birds like robins or mourning doves will come in and use a nesting platform like this. A lot of times, robins in particular will take advantage. Like if you have a tall deck, they'll go underneath the deck on the wood platforms and they'll build their nests right in there. So if you have that happening, you can put something like this out and maybe attract them away from where your deck is, where you might disturb them by walking around, and have them nest in there.
This is really cool.
Yeah.
Where can we find a lot of these different things? Like, where do you pick something up like this?
Actually, all of these items that I have here today are available from the National Wildlife Federation. Perfect. So if you Google National Wildlife Federation, and you'll find our shop site, you can get all this stuff. And I actually personally reviewed and picked all of these items, so that that they kind of have a stamp of approval.
Yeah, for sure.
Because the unfortunate thing is that not all items are made equally, and a lot of them that are out there really aren't all that great. So These ones get a thumbs up from me.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
All right, so the next one, the next big guy.
You want to talk about this?
I would love to talk about that because, yeah, let's get into what this is.
Yeah, so we were just tweeting about this before I showed up here, and unfortunately, I couldn't bring the live animals that would actually live in here, but this is a bat box.
It's a bat box. Bats go in this thing. Like a lot of bats.
A lot of bats, yeah.
We were opening it up earlier, and this is why I tweeted at him. There was like a label on it, and it says, very casually, mind you, this can fit about 100 live bats. 100 live bats in this box. And I immediately tweeted, I was like, tell me, are you bringing 100 bats to me today? I need to know. Unfortunately, we couldn't get 100 bats in here.
But next
talk
time.
To me, next time. Next time we'll have 100 bats. So talk to me about this thing, man.
So bat houses or bat boxes are pretty popular. And it's just like a bird nesting box or a roosting box. This is something that you can build or buy that you can put out, sort of a man-made structure that mimics the natural habitat of bats. So most bat species here in North America, they're at night or during the day because they're nocturnal. They're flying around at night. During the day and in the winter, they're roosting in trees, under loose bark, sometimes in our houses, in our buildings, in our attics. We really don't want to encourage that. But this bat box kind of mimics that natural place where they will go and kind of spend the day. So some things that you want to know before you go out and get a bat box.
Which, obviously, I'm on my way. How do we do it?
So the height is really important. You want to have it be at least 18 to 24 inches tall. And again, that helps create a temperature gradient. Bats like it really hot. They like it to be like 100 degrees up at the top. But if they get too hot, they can kind of climb down. And this is actually a vent that will let some air out. So you want to make sure that it's built to the right height and width so that bats will actually be attracted to it. If it's anything smaller than this, it's probably not going to work to attract bats. If it's bigger than this, even better. You can get huge bat boxes or build them yourself. So you want to make sure that, again, it has the right height. You want to make sure it has a landing platform. This particular model has this mesh, and what that does is it just gives the bat somewhere to grab onto. And if you tip it up, just so that we can see the inside here, bats can flatten themselves out pretty small. And so up in the inside here, there's this little space, and then there's another, it doesn't open up, but that's why 100 bats can fit in here, because there's all of this space in here, and they can kind of squeeze in here and get all the way up and kind of cling inside there, and they can hang on to this. Again, if you get a bigger one, there might be multiple little chambers inside of here, but this, again, allows them to get up in there and kind of cram themselves in so that they like to roost in colonies. A lot of times, female bats will use bat boxes as places where they have their babies. They form a maternal colony. And so the mama bats are in there with the little baby bats, and bats are mammals, so they're nursing, just like any other mammal in here. It's pretty neat.
That's really neat.
Yeah.
What are some? I think somebody was saying earlier, we were talking that if you have like a lot of mosquitoes or something, bats are actually good to have around. Is that true? Or is that like a myth?
It's a little bit true.
A little bit of both.
So certainly some bat species do feed on mosquitoes. Having bats around isn't going to eliminate every single mosquito. Nature doesn't work like that. But they can help keep the mosquito population in check, so that you don't have an overwhelming amount. But there's lots of other animals that do eat mosquitoes. Dragonflies, both the flying adults and the aquatic larvae, are incredible predators of mosquitoes. Amphibians, frogs, toads, salamanders also eat both the aquatic larvae and the flying insects and the flying adults.
Right.
Songbirds, tons of songbirds will fly by and eat up mosquitoes. So the more diverse groups of wildlife you can attract to your yard, your garden, your neighborhood, the more the pest species sort of stay in balance. And that's really part of what the message is here. Again, just like you take care and nurture your pets inside, you can do this for wildlife outside and make the environment a better place. It's really neat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very, very neat.
One last thing on these guys.
Before we put this down.
I know your poor arm is probably getting tired. It's heavy.
It's got no bats in it.
So these, if you want to hang a bat box, the number one thing that people do wrong is that they hang it on the side of a tree. For whatever reason, even though the bats normally roost in trees, they're not comfortable in a bat box on a tree because I guess they feel like a raccoon can come up very easily, or a snake. So the best thing to do is hang it on a pole at least 12 feet off the ground. The bottom should be at least 12 feet off the ground. Most bat species cannot take off from the ground. So think about a bird. They're on the ground. They flap their wings. They fly away. Bats can't do that. Some species can, but most of them can't. They have to actually climb up on something and jump off and open their wings and fly. So they feel very, very vulnerable if they have to hit the ground, because they're not very agile on the ground. So if you hang your bat box too low to the ground, they're like, not moving in there. So at least 12 feet off the ground on a pole, or even better and a little bit easier on the side of a building.
I love the idea of having people over, walking into my backyard and being like, what's that thing on top of that 12-foot pole you have in the middle of your yard?
That's right.
That's where I keep 100 of my finest bats.
There you go. And
that's all
bats,
that is.
and bats, by the way, in North America are suffering from something called white nose syndrome.
Right.
And the last time I checked, over, I think, 6 billion bats have been killed by this.
Good God.
They're on the downswing. It's an exotic disease that has come in and is literally wiping them out coast to coast. So the more we can do to help bats, don't spray pesticides, put out bat boxes, restore natural habitat, it's going to be a good thing.
For sure. We have to open up the audience Q&A in a second. Was there anything else you wanted to? I know
A bird bath.
Bird bath.
Simple bird bath is a great way to attract wildlife. Again, just dump it out once every 3 or 4 days, and you won't have any mosquitoes breeding in there. We've got some feeders set up over here. Another simple thing that you can do to supplement the natural foods that you're attracting with your plants and all the bugs that you're attracting. So it's really easy to help wildlife in this way, literally right outside your door. So I encourage everybody to just give it a go, and you can pick any one of these things, and it will make a big difference.
Well, it's one of those things where just a little bit goes a really long way to just kind of help with the ecosystem and help with everything that's around you, and it has a huge impact.
Yeah. One warning though.
Oh.
Once you do this, you're gonna be hooked.
Oh, okay.
Once you put out a bird feeder, it's gonna like every morning you're gonna wake up and you're gonna be like, did they eat it? What's out there? You're gonna want to go out and refill it. So just fair warning for everyone.
That is a totally fair warning. I was terrified because everything else was like so heavy. It was like one morning, I was like, oh no, one of these kills things. I was like, no, this is all cool. Just you're gonna really dig it. So that's perfect.
Yeah.
Let's open it up. Some great questions. First one right over here.
Hi.
Hi.
So I have a backyard, and I tried a bird feeder, and it was amazing, and we had doves, and we had bluebirds, and then the rats came.
Yeah.
So how can one avoid the infestation of the rodent?
So great question, and you're not alone. A lot of people have problems with rats or other critters getting in there that you might not necessarily want. First thing is that the best way to feed the birds is naturally through your plants. So think about feeding the birds by planting, wildflowers that get seed heads or shrubs that get berries on them, because that's how Mother Nature feeds the birds. Birds actually only will use a bird feeder to supplement the natural foods they find in the landscape. So that's the first thing to think about. Like, you don't need a bird feeder in order to feed the birds. Second, though, bird feeders are great fun, and they're actually in many ways more for us because they attract those birds right where we can see them every single day. And people love to feed the birds because it's just a fun activity to do. So what I would say is, if you're having trouble with rats, take the feeder down. Take it down for at least a month, okay? And just, again, let the birds do their own thing. And then slowly, maybe reintroduce it. I would use sunflower, like shelled sunflower hearts, less mess. Anything that falls down to the ground is going to attract rats. So if you buy a low-quality bird seed blend with a lot of junk seed in it, like cracked corn, which most birds don't eat, the birds come, they literally pick through it, and they dump the stuff that they don't want on the ground. And then guess who comes and eats it? So feed a high-quality sunflower heart. The birds will eat all of it, and it won't spill to the ground. You can also buy like a baffle that would sit underneath the feeder to catch anything. And if you do those things, it should minimize any pests coming in to feed off of your bird feeder. You're welcome.
Hey, Matt. Hey, David.
Hey.
I was wondering, how did you acquire this sage-like knowledge on pets and wildlife, and how are you able to incorporate it all into show business?
Another great question. I wasn't joking when I said that I'm a nature geek. I literally was born this way. Seriously, ask my parents. And in fact, if you watch the premiere episode of Pet Talk this Friday, we kind of kicked the show off talking about that exact question. Me and Dr. Tina and Dr. Courtney, we kind of share our very first animal memories, and I'm not gonna spill it because I want you to watch it, but let's just say it involves me proclaiming to the world that I wanted to marry a certain species of animal. And I'll just leave it at that. But I think like a lot of kids, I was drawn to animals. I was interested in them. I wanted to play with them, and I wanted to pet them, and I wanted to learn more about them. And I was really lucky that my parents encouraged that. I grew up in New Jersey, typical suburban neighborhood. We just had some woods and some fields. And my mom and dad, even though they were both city kids themselves, really fostered my love of nature and let me, run around and explore nature and catch frogs. The kind of thing that honestly doesn't really happen anymore with kids. Parents are so, freakish about keeping their kids controlled and indoors and everything, and it's actually a really bad thing. So, having that experience as a kid really kind of planted that seed, if you will, that I just followed. I studied ecology. I eventually came to work for the National Wildlife Federation 16 years ago to run our program that's all about urban wildlife and all this sort of, bird feeding and native plants and all that stuff, wildlife habitat in your yard. I wrote a book on it, and a book got turned into a TV series, and the next thing you know, I'm hosting TV shows, and that was, a decade ago, and here I am as a host of Pet Talk on Nat Geo Wild. So.
Did you have zoo books when you were a kid?
I love zoo books.
Zoo books!
In fact, I still have my entire zoo books collection.
No way.
I do. I have them in a magazine rack on my desk at work.
Oh man, if anybody would, I guess, right? Yeah.
Like I said, Nature Geek right here.
For sure.
Zoo
well,
books.
That's legit. That's how you know. That's the cred right there.
Zoo Books and Ranger Rick Magazine, which happens to be the magazine that the National Wildlife Federation publishes. So when I'm back in Washington, D.C., and I go into the office, to this day, I still get goosebumps when I walk in and I see the Ranger Rick production wall, because it's like being an 8-year-old kid again.
That's so
and I'm
cool.
seeing it happen in real life. It's awesome.
Next one.
What's your favorite animal of the land, air, and sea?
Oh, geez. We're going to be here all day because I can't even pick one. Why don't you go? What's your favorite animal?
My favorite animal of the land, air, and sea, which, by the way, thank you for being specific. Favorite animal.
It's hard, isn't it?
It really,
There's so many
there's
cool animals out
literally, billions?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Maybe more. I don't know. Partial to penguins, right? Like, they're pretty chill. I didn't mean that pun, but I'll take it. I don't know. Come back to me. All right,
Okay.
I gave penguins. You do one, and then we'll come back.
Penguins are awesome, but I'm just here to tell you that they smell disgusting. They smell like rotten fish.
Killing me, David.
Guess what they eat? Rotten fish. So.
I imagine, yeah. That seems to follow suit.
I love North American animals. I think that tremendously amazing animals all over the world. I feel like, the African wildlife, the African megafauna gets a lot of spotlight, and, cool animals that want to kill you in Australia, right? Big animals. But here in North America, we've got just really, really amazing, beautiful, interesting animals that oftentimes just sort of go overlooked because they live in our yard, or they live in our neighborhood, or you can go down to the local park. So for me, I'm partial to two gray animals. One is a gray fox. Cute little foxes, they would maybe weigh 8 or 9 pounds, found over much of North America, although you almost never see them because they're really elusive. They're mostly gray, but they've got a lot of red in them, a lot of black in them. They're the only wild canid, wild dog family member that can climb trees. So they're kind of neat in that regard. And they can live in a whole wide variety of habitats. They live in North America, down into South America. So that's one. And then the other one is a gray tree frog. And these guys are totally rad because their natural markings look exactly like camouflage, like military camouflage. And if you put one of them up on the bark of a tree, it will instantly disappear. So everybody go out and look up gray tree frog, and you'll see what I'm talking about.
That's super cool. We're going to do one more, but hang on. I thought of my animal. Have you seen the swimming pigs?
Yes.
Oh, man. And that's kind of land and sea.
There you go.
I don't know if you guys haven't seen this. Look it up. It's absolutely amazing. There's an island. You can go out there. Inexplicably, these pigs swim. It's adorable. You can swim with them. Last question.
Hi, David. Thank you for coming. My question was, what was your favorite animal that you excited? What animal are you most excited to see or pet?
Just like in general or on Pet Talk?
In general.
Well, I would love to see a gray tree frog and a gray fox at any time.
What about on Pet Talk, though? Because you guys have a lot of animals on that.
Yeah,
show,
I mean,
right?
so we actually have some set pets. So we've got Tucker, the golden doodle. We've got a bird, we've got a cat, we've got fish that are just part of our family on set. And then, of course, we are bringing in all sorts of animals. We actually did a segment talking about another kind of disturbing pet trend, and that is people going out and trying to get wolves or wolf dogs as pets.
Right.
And again, I won't give away the whole segment, but you can probably tell by the tone of my voice that not a good idea. And so if you check out the show, you'll learn a little bit more why. But I did bring in a wolf and then a dog that kind of looks like a wolf to just make the point that you're not cool if you want to go out and get a wild animal as a pet. You're actually kind of an idiot, especially when you have dogs that are domesticated and can live with people just perfectly fine that look almost exactly like wolves. So just don't be that guy is really my message.
I think it's a great message. Don't be that guy. David, the National Wildlife Federation, it's where we can find all these amazing habitats. So check those out. The show, Pet Talk, it's this Friday, 10 o'clock, Nat Geo Wild, the first episode. I'm super excited. We're all going to watch it, right? We're all tuning in. That's them right there.
I love it.
Guys, keep it going. Thank you so much. David Mizejewski, everybody.
Awesome.